I'm going to be talking about extreme singing and fast analysis of rough vocal effects used in popular singing, some of the effects we've heard today. And I'm also going to talk about how to teach them without traumatizing the vocal folds. Of course, this is a very individual size and also, of course, depends on the individual we are confronted with, but I'll at least give you some of the more popular tricks that we're often using when teaching these. So, you've seen this before. Some of you that were here earlier, this is a complete vocal technique overview chart, and I'm not going to go into details with this one, merely to state that before working with the effects, all of them actually, we have to master the basics, the basic foundation of the instrument, and that being the 3 overall principles containing support, the necessary twang, avoiding protruding the jaw, and tightening of the lips. These are the basic foundations that we need to obey by before choosing a vocal mode, of which we have 4. And I think it's worth mentioning that articles on curbing, overdrive and edge have been printed in Journal of Voice. So after that, when we have mastered our mode, we choose a sound color, and then we can... And this was the, yeah, here we go, look how funky that is, right? So as soon as we've chosen our mode and we've found the sound color that works in the most optimal manner, then we can pick an effect, of which we have many. So we have, I chose a hand-free mic here because I think I'm going to be loud at times. So we have distortion, I'm going to talk about that today. It sounds like this. We have creak and creaking. So that's with or without a note. We have rattle, going to talk about that today as well. Ah! We have growl. We have grunt. Then we have screams, which is actually just a high-pitched note, a sudden outburst. So here we go. Ah! Vocal breaks. Oh! If you remember that guy. Air added to the voice, oh baby. Vibrato, we have 3 different kinds. The laryngeal vibrato, we have hammer, which is a little bit more staccato, and we have something in between called pulsations, which is like where the 2 meet. And then finally we have techniques for ornamentation. That's a bit low, but yeah. Right, so these are all the technique, the effects. Before moving on, probably maybe you've seen some of these again. I'm just not gonna go too much into details here. These are some of the studies that we have already performed at CVT, Complete Vocal Technique. We is of course a big word. I lended my voice in the name of science as a singer. I didn't actually perform the study, but we sound better. Endoscopy, stroboscopy, video of effects, performed by the good Dr. Julian McGlashan. Laryngeal stroboscopy, I think I'm going to name my next born that. And EGG of effects, presented also by Julian McGlashan in 2013. A lot of other effect studies. And just want to mention this one as well, because it includes all of the effects I'm going to talk about today: distortion, rattle, growling, and grunting. Also presented by Julian McGlashan at PVOC 7. Also, CVT has a forthcoming paper on distortion, rattle, growl, and grunt. If you're interested in more detailed info than I can give you, or maybe you've heard during this conference, you can also go into cvtresearch.com, where all the research finding, abstracts, papers, etc. are available, and that's for free. And it's the same if you have a smart device of some kind, which is pretty standard these days. You can download the CVT app for free as well, and there will be a link to the research site, among a lot of other things. Today I will show you, among other things, some footage from a couple of the mentioned studies, and this is to enable a view of the laryngeal gestures present when performing the effects. And among other things, we've used a laryngograph microprocessor, electro software, and an endoscope. And if you're not familiar with an endoscope, then you can here witness the insertion of it through the nose. Finally, we arrived through the jungle, and now we get a clear view of the larynx here. Before moving on, I'd like to show you a chart that we use a lot, especially when working with the effects on the school. This is called the levels of the vocal tract. So in order to optimize the communication with the singers, CVT has created this navigation system and divided the nasal, oral and hypopharynx into more specific detailed level, you might say, in regards to related voice work. So this is sometimes a little bit more comprehensible for a singer that has never heard about what is going on in the vocal tract. The specific levels of interest today are pretty much level 1 to 4. I'm going to be referring to these levels. So, a couple of words. I heard a couple of questions earlier about how to work with these effects, and this is of course one of my main objectives today, to give you some tools for this. Some keywords on this is to establish a healthy setting, first off, of the desired vocal mode. So that means simply the sound. We'll make sure that this is well implemented into the muscle memory, and then maintaining this setting while adding the effect. So we are seeking to maintain the vocal mode when adding the effect. Of course, also we have to locate and establish the exact setting of the desired effect at the given level of the vocal tract by means of method or learning angles. So these are some of the learning angles and methods I'm going to be showing you today. It's also important to be able to add and remove the effect on demand, so we can ensure that the mode underneath is still a healthy one, and that we have regular vibration, and we're not changing the waveform of the vocal cords, vocal cord vibration. Make certain also to have the necessary energy to perform the effect. It's also very vital. So when down on sleep or sick, it's not a good idea to start experimenting with the effect. One might say to experiment with singing, actually. Might just stay in bed and feel sorry for yourself. Also, of course, that's kind of connected, know the healthy limits as to the voice. In the following, I will be focusing on distortion, rattle, growl and grunt. First off, distortion, I've divided it like this, that I'm going to play you the sound first off, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the laryngeal gestures, show you some footage there, and then I'm going to finish off with the teaching method. So first off, the sound. And as you hear, I've tried to isolate the vocals so it's easier to hear exactly what is going on vocally here. I'm removing the music. Another one.
Fall out and take the bait, eat the fruit and kiss the snake goodnight.
Yes. So this is the sound of distortion. And here is an stroboscopy video of the effect. Yes, and a high-speed video as well. If you didn't notice it before, you can see, of course, that the vocal cords are vibrating, creating the sound of the vocal mode, and then above we have at level 2 the ventricular folds making vibrations, and of course along with a lot of other things. So you've seen this before, and I'm not going to go into the specifics on this pretty much because this is not the main focus of the presentation. I'm just going to focus in on what you also heard before, that the primary source of distortion as we observe it in most individuals is the vibration of the ventricular folds against or adjacently to each other on level 2 in the vocal tract. Level 2 being the ventricular folds. From a teaching perspective, we can say that generally when we're teaching it, it seems to be more secure with the light sound color. And there are 6 places where we can alter the sound color in the vocal tract, but we can say that some of the popular ones are the twanging of the epiglottic funnel. We call it distinct twang. We can raise the larynx, so you can speak like a child, or like you just swallowed a helium balloon. You can smile with your mouth wide open. And at least if we are submitting to these 3 sound color places, there's a good possibility that the sound color will be much lighter than normally. Unless, of course, you are an extremely happy person all the time. Pitch and volume, it's possible to sing distortion in all pitches, and the volume can vary from quiet to loud. And it's also possible to do it in all modes. So for example, we had the 4 modes: neutral, curving, overdrive and edge. Good thing to remember those right now. Neutral, for example, or curving, or overdrive, or edge. This is where we have the distortion in all of these modes. And what I'm trying to remember all the time is, of course, to remember to respect and follow the rules of the mode when I'm adding the effect. Via some exercises, images, sensations, or sound, I think for many of us, when experimenting with the distortion, we feel like it requires a lot of energy. It costs a lot. So energy is required for most of us mortals, and that means raise the support value, often while holding back the sound. It can feel like more resistance and everything. We can, for example, use the image of a Kung Fu master in order to raise the energy level. Hard to be a lazy Kung Fu master, I'm thinking. A person with an evil plan, like a troll or a witch. We can twang the epiglottic funnel a lot. Imagine that the funnel is being completely squeezed. We can say, "Aye!" as if we are extremely annoyed, or we might hurt ourselves. Imitate the sound of throwing up. Apparently, when we throw up, we often distort, although that might not be the main focus in that situation, of course. And imitate the sound of being strangled. So that can also, of course, these are images, don't go strangling anybody to experiment with distortion. And by the way, be very happy about being strangled to ensure the light sound color. So this is the effect of distortion also from a teaching perspective, and those are some of the tricks that we are very often using. So I'm moving on to a arytenoid rattle. And first off, the sound.
Back in black. Well, I'm back in black.
And another one.
You're the one that gets you all. You're the one I always call. When I need you, baby, everything stops. Finally, you put my love on top. Hey, well, I care.
And of course I'm complimenting the sound there. So here, endoscopy. Yes. Some of the gestures that are present, we see them here, see a lot of them. Again, for more info, check out cvtresearch.com, or maybe attack Dr. Julian McGlashan afterwards. Primary source of rattle is the vibration of the arytenoid cartilages against or adjacently to one another on level 3. So that is thereby higher in the vocal tract than the ventricular folds at level 2. So rattle from a teaching perspective Again, it seems like with distortion that it's more secure initially with light sound color, but of course the sound color can vary as with distortion as soon as the effect is well implemented into the system and we know where it's located. It's also possible to sing rattle in all pitches and volumes, and we can do rattle in all notes. I'm not gonna bore you with that, but I can show you a rattle. And then if I compare that to a distortion, see here that the distortion seems to be more fine-grained, or some might even say crunchy, and the rattle is a little bit more like of a rolly feel to it. Always again, remember to respect and follow the rules of the mode when adding the effect. Via some exercises or images, sensations or sound, we can twang a note in neutral high pitch and add a light, easy vibration to it. For example, you can imitate a crow, and you don't need the hands for that. Rattle is like the sound you hear when driving over a small stone gravel. An image of that. We can imagine that we sing a distortion sound that is placed higher in the throat, which is actually pretty accurate, as the rattle is happening at level 3 and the distortion at level 2, the ventricular fold level. For people that have been working with distortion, it seems like it could seem like they're moving halfway towards the distortion in terms perhaps of energy. Another image could be to make a very cautious distortion. So these are some of the tricks that we're using and when teaching this or when we're trying to sing the rattle. So moving on to growl. So first off, the sound.
Of people going by, I see friends shaking hands, saying how do you do. They're really saying I love you.
Yes, and another one.
I'm so bored of cowards. If you can play once more,
So this is the sound of growl. And from an stroboscopy video point of view here, this is like described before, hard to see exactly what is going on. We have the arytenoids vibrating here. So gesture-wise, the part of the difficulty to see exactly what is going on visually is of course that the epiglottis is moving backwards. But we can say that the primary source of growl is the vibration of the arytenoids against or adjacently to the epiglottis on level 3. So that's the difference that we mainly see in our subjects when we are observing them performing rattle, which involve the arytenoids vibrating, and the growl, which also involves the arytenoids vibrating, but more or less against the epiglottis in the growl. So that changes the parameter sound-wise and thereby also teaching-wise. Growl from a teaching perspective, well, as you might hear in the examples that I played, the sound color is relatively dark. So in the high part of the voice, it's important not to lower the back of the tongue too much, as this will restrict the larynx from rising. Pitch and volume, it is possible to sing growl in all pitches, but often at least I find that it gets increasingly hard to add as we ascend into the very high pitches, so sky high. But of course it's possible, it's a matter of practice, and the volume can vary from quiet to loud. We can also add the growl in all modes. So we had the growl, we had the rattle, and we had the distortion, So that is the main difference between these three effects sound-wise. So via exercises, images, sensations, or sound, we can slightly raise the larynx, pull the back of the tongue slightly backwards and not downwards to avoid lowering of the larynx, and then twang the epiglottic funnel. So that would make us end up somewhere here. We can also clear the throat with the mouth closed at a fairly low volume. Of course, not too vigorously, but you can all try it if you want. If you close your mouth and you go. So for many, we have an idea about the location of the effect, and some will start growling immediately. So we can cultivate and refine that setting into an actual usable effect. Swallow the tongue. Of course, don't take that too literally. Larynx and tongue meet and stay stuck together. You can imitate Mad Miss Piggy, the prima donna from the Muppet Show. Kermit! Or establish the moat. Hey! Compress the tongue. Hey! Go the knuddle way like that of Mr. Bean. Hey! And then add growl. Hey! So that is a common approach. So that was the growl. Now moving on to the final effect, and that is the grunt. And the first thing I want to do is play you the sound. And maybe it's only me getting deaf, but could it be slightly louder? Yes. Thank you. Yeah, Cannibal Corpse there, and story goes that he struggled a lot to finish those lyrics. So, next one, Arch Enemy.
It's a revolution, creating new disorder. We are enemy, opponent of the system, crushing hypocrisy, slaying the Philistine. Yeah, one for all.
Yes, so endoscopy, stroboscopy video of grunt. See it here. And due to time, I'll just jump ahead a little bit and go directly to the primary source of grunt. What we see is that the vibration of the whole supraglottic structure from level 1 to 4 in the vocal tract at a low frequency with a large amplitude in the vibrations of the vocal folds and with particular movements of the epiglottic folds. So I hope you've memorized that. And then we're moving on to some teaching perspective angles. It's often relatively dark, so in the high part of the voice, take care not to darken too much. It's also possible to sing grunt in all pitches, and the volume can vary from quiet to loud, and it's also possible to grunt in all modes, although it's fair to say that that's technically advanced. So just to show you what we've been through, we have the grunt, we have the growl, we have the rattle, and then we have the distortion. So these are the four effects that I've gone through. So, it's just a couple of tips on the images, sensations, and sounds so I can finish off in a smooth manner here. Well, you can try to take a deep breath and feel the vocal cord retract. Keep those in this position while making an exhalation of air. And now try to experiment with making this sound of the exhalation a little bit stronger. For example, yeah, very nice. Grunt choir, that's new. But you can also imitate the sound of being really annoyed, or when finding something very stupid, barking like a huge dog, or imitate an angry orc, bring back the ring. Or imitate the sound of very exaggerated moans and groans, for example, female tennis players, I've noticed. So if you're into tennis and a vocal nerd, it's 2 in 1. So conclusion, at least for as long as singing has been recorded, The rough vocal effects have been used by males and females across cultures and genres, from Elvis and Little Richard to Etta James and Tina Turner, Steven Tyler, James Hetfield, all artists with highly successful careers, together covering a vast array of styles. It's safe to say that for a lot of us, the cultural heritage wouldn't be the same without these very artists, and these artists wouldn't be the same without some of these effects. We have been teaching at Complete Vocal Institute these effects for a long time. We have been making studies that show that we can produce all the effects without traumatizing the vocal folds, and we practice it on a daily level as well. It's a mandatory part of the curriculum that every complete or authorized teacher is able to demonstrate and teach all the effects, including the teachers that are classical singers. So of course we can become hoarse from working with these effects, just as we can become hoarse from not working with them. So the overall key is to work with the voice in a correct manner, and that a singer is equipped to do so by knowing the basic foundation of the instrument as well as the technical features of the effect. But fundamentally, we can say that we can all learn to master the rough vocal effects and the many combinations that they present in a healthy manner, because we already have. We just need to embrace, rediscover, and balance these effects yet again. Thank you very much.